Ukraine advances across entire Kherson Frontline, and they are moving closer to the first major city in this area. And in the meantime, Russia imposes a martial law on recently occupied territories, and it's not good. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and see some most recent footage from across Ukraine. And our first picture comes to us from Kiev, where you can see a Ukrainian air defense system in action. Then we move to Chernihiv, where we can see the consequences of Russian shelling. But luckily, some of these missiles were intercepted. And to be honest, Ukrainian air defense system did improve recently, because as you can see right here, in the last 36 days, Ukraine was able to shoot down 223 drones. Then we go to Belgorod, and as you can see from this video, an electrical equipment has been damaged. And now let's go a little bit more to the south to see some very interesting footage. And while I'm going there, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel if you like this style of daily updating. You can also follow me on Instagram and send me a message and I will reply to you. On this first picture, which came to us from Donbass region, we can see, I guess, a so-called defense pyramids of Russians. Now, I'm not sure exactly about their purpose or why Ukrainians simply cannot move them, but their location is far more interesting. Because on this map we can see the alleged placement of these pyramids. And first of all, it seems that they are intentionally separating Luhansk from Donetsk. And at the same time, the biggest concentration of these so-called pyramids is next to Kreminna, Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, which only once again confirms the importance of these cities. Alright, and now let's go to Enerhodar. And as you can see from this video, this night there was an attack against the city administration building, which was used by Russian infiltrators. Next we move to Kherson, and according to this video, a partial evacuation has already started. In several seconds, I will give you an update on counteroffensive on the east, but first of all, allow me to quickly show you just 5 more footages from Ukraine, and 2 of them are very interesting. And right here we have a video from Vinnytsia, which shows the consequences of Russian shelling. And then we go to Ladezhin, where reportedly a local thermal power plant has been attacked by Russians. Our next stop brings us to Chernivtsi, where a Russian missile has been spotted passing by. And finally, here we have a soldier from Belarus who is wearing this red tape around his arm as their brand new identification marks. And for Belarusian military vehicles, it's this number 2 inside a triangle. And I guess it stands for the second army in the world, right after the Russian one. I also received this video which shows us the training of Ukrainian army, and to be honest, this is pretty impressive. And if you want to see the full version along with thousands of footages from the past and in the future, please consider checking my Patreon. The proceeds will be donated to Ukraine, and you can find all the useful links down below. Alright, and now as promised, let's quickly talk about the situation in the east. And first of all, according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russia has been attempting to do some ground attacks in the north and northwest of Kharkiv region. The purpose of this offensive is pretty clear, which is to not let Ukrainian forces advance closer to key cities, such as Svatove and Troitske. And then, according to the same report, Russians were also trying to capture Avdiivka and Bakhmut. And the importance of Bakhmut, as you can see right here, it is because it is located on the intersection of some major highways. But yeah, like mentioned previously, the majority of action is happening in the south, so let's talk about it right now. And first of all, according to once again the same report, Ukrainian forces continue to perform counteroffensive operations across the entire Kherson Frontline. If you remember from my yesterday's episode, the first group of Ukrainian forces was advancing from Dutchany all the way to Mylove. But today, the 2nd Battalion, along with the Tank Battalion, has joined them from Nova Kamenka. And it is no longer a secret that the ultimate goal of this specific counteroffensive will be recapturing Berislav, which is, as you might already know, is a major city in the eastern part of Kherson. And here is why. As you can see right here, Berislav is basically just across the river from Nova Kakhovka. And taking this city will allow Ukrainians to catch their breath and start planning the next step of their counteroffensive, which potentially most likely will include crossing Dnipro river. And then, here is my assumption, and assumption only. What if, right after recapturing Berislav, crossing Dnipro river and liberating Nova Kakhovka, Ukrainians will start advancing towards Kherson? Because just think about it, Kherson is the major city in Kherson region, which obviously means that Russians are trying to protect it as much as they can. And even though Ukrainians are trying to advance closer to the city from the west and northwest, it is still extremely complicated. But then we have another major crossing in Kherson region, which is located in Nova Kakhovka. And even though the combat actions will still be very complicated, they will not be impossible, especially taking into consideration the statement by the new commander of Russia, Sergei Surovkin, that they might be taking some very difficult decisions. And as we already figured in our previous episode, this difficult decision might potentially mean the retreat of Russians from Nova Kakhovka. And so, as you can see, the encirclement of Kherson started making way more sense. And if you want to download all the maps that I was drawing today for free, please make sure to join our Discord. And so, what is the response by Russia? Let's very briefly talk about this. First of all, and you already know it, Russian infiltrators in Kherson already announced the evacuation. But what makes it sad for just regular people who live in these areas is that Russia simply abandoned them. I mean, you remember, right before the referendums, Russia was saying, we do care about our brothers and sisters who live in Ukraine, and will do everything possible to protect them. But now, when Russian collaborators are forcing civilians to evacuate and asking Russia to help them, Russia is like, no, you are a part of Russia, so just help yourself. And to make things even worse, today Vladimir Putin imposed a martial law on all of these recently occupied territories, which are once again Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporozhye, and of course Kherson. And even though the martial law has already been invoked, the local authorities have 3 days to come up with the measures that they are going to take. And the most probable things that are going to happen are the curfew, the limit of travel inside and outside of these territories, and even all the way up to mandatory mobilization. And I mean, wasn't it Putin himself who said in the very beginning of this special military operation that the purpose of Russia is to protect Ukrainians from killing Ukrainians? And now he will be literally forcing them to fight against their own countrymen. And in addition to that, as you can see from this map, several other regions also change their status. The territories in red are the ones with the martial law, and those areas in orange are in so-called medium level of response. Which means that there will also be some limitations about moving inside these territories and increase in security. And then we have territories in yellow, which also include Moscow, and these are basically high alert regions. The authorities claim that they are not planning to impose many restrictions, but there will be an increase in security. And if you want to support my work, unlock some benefits and get your name featured in my next episode, please consider becoming my channel member. All the other useful links can be found to my right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow.